Oh, Ezra Miller, that's a name that should strike fear in you, not memes. No, no, no. Most of those headlines are true, and most of them are a lot less funny than you could imagine.
When I get assaulted for NFT crypto art.
Alright, so it turns out Miller has had a troubled history with the law for a while, and that rabbit hole actually goes pretty deep. A lot more than some petty crime spree in Hawaii, allegedly. Now, Miller started getting the wrong kind of attention a long time ago. And this all started when they choked out a fan in Iceland.
Did you want to fight? Is that the deal? Whoa, bro. Fight?
Of course, nothing happened from this because, as we all know, celebrities play by different rules than the average individual and are allowed to get away with more crimes than usual. Basically, the gist of this is don't meet your heroes. But basically, yeah, nothing happened when Miller choked out this lady. But we all want to know about Hawaii. That's where all the funny memes come from, all the funny article titles. Now, since about March of 2022, the actor had been on the receiving end of multiple complaints from residents. You see, Miller was allegedly disorderly and causing a scene everywhere they went. 10 calls were made before anything was done, which, you know, I mean, that's kind of par for the course for American police, am I right, guys? These early calls, though, were related to small incidents, loitering type stuff, you know, where Miller apparently, quote, filmed people at a gas station and refused to leave the sidewalk of a restaurant, whatever that means. Now, it's just my hunch, my opinion, really, about the kind of person that Miller must be. And given from what I've seen, they fluctuate wildly between being the type of person that is incredibly kind to being the type of person that is the worst Karen ever. The energy is there, but all of this irritability with Ezra Miller might point to something else. At least that's how it reads to me when I see everything that's gone on. But, you know, there's also other things like this impromptu call out of the KKK.
This is Ezra Miller, aka the Bengal Ghouls, the Mad Goose Wizard. And this is a message for the Beulahville chapter of the North Carolina Ku Klux Klan. Hello, first of all, how are y'all doing? It's me. Look, if y'all want to die, I suggest just with your own guns. Okay? Otherwise, keep doing exactly what you're doing right now, and you know what I'm talking about. And then, you know, we'll do it for you if that's really what you want. Okay, talk to you soon, okay? Bye!
Thank you, Ezra Miller. I'm sure the KKK is worried about what you had to say. Glad there's allies like you in the world. Now, at least from my research, it seems that Ezra Miller is not a fan of Lady Gaga because of an alleged incident that happened at a small karaoke bar in the town of Hilo, Hawaii. You see, in this bar, they were playing Shallow by Lady Gaga. This, according to the police report, apparently enraged Miller, whom grabbed the microphone while yelling and swearing, lunged at a man playing darts. Now, what makes this really interesting is that Miller was arrested at a Margarita Village shortly after midnight, which you didn't know Margarita Villages still existed. I thought they all went out of business, but apparently after midnight Monday, they were charged with disorderly conduct and harassment. Miller was released after paying $500 bail. End quote. Now, you know, the Hawaii escapades don't end there. One of the most famous ones is a headline about Miller bursting into a bedroom, of which makes it sound like Miller was there uninvited. So, yeah, it's not sexual, just in case anyone's guessing. But speaking of no-go zones in terms of videos like this seem to hurt my overall income overall on the channel. So support me on Patreon if you can. And also, everybody likes watching drama, not this stuff. I like making this stuff, so I mix it in with drama. So there, okay? All right, so Miller was at a hostel, which if you don't know what a hostel is, Americans, a hostel is kind of like staying in a dorm, but it's a hotel and you're there with strangers and you kind of just hang out there for a week, right? Anyway, Miller allegedly attempted to steal a passport and a wallet. So maybe they were casing the joint, but that's just my feeler on that. Now, Miller being at a hostel is already insane because you'd think a celebrity would have enough money to stay in like some penthouse or something, but there Miller was staying in a hostel, engaging with the common folk, the rest of us. Miller allegedly burst into the hostel owner's bedroom and threatened them hostilely. Sorry, pun intended, I had to. Anyway, Miller burst into the bedroom of the hostel owner and talked about burying the slut wife of the owner. When asked whether or not the wife was a slut, the owner said no. I made that up. That didn't happen. But they did. Miller did burst into the room and call the wife that. Now, during all of these things, Miller was posting on social media, you know, all those amazing, wonderful posts that have become memeable in and of themselves with Miller's actions, right? But a lot of this gets a lot less funny the more I dig into it. So here's where I cut the brake line and we go head first into like the worst stuff. Now, Miller was in a relationship with an individual known as Mia Salang. Mia Salang was an influencer, an ex of Miller's. Allegedly, according to Mia, they were apparently called these things that I can't say on YouTube, but those are what they are quoted as saying. According to Mia, they were never threatened by Miller, but allegedly received bite marks. Miller identifies as non-binary, if you guys haven't been able to pick up on that yet. Mia does as well, but during an intimate moment, Miller used the term good girl to describe Mia. This has been used to write articles about how Miller doesn't respect others' pronouns but wants their pronouns respected. I should also mention that I looked into this to see if there were other examples of that, and I haven't been able to find any. If there are, then there are, but as far as I know, this is a one-time expose thing. Now, an interesting point is that Mia is 19, and during a leaked conversation referred to this as grooming. It's unknown if it began during or before the relationship when Mia was legal. Specifics on Mia are rather sparse. Mia is one of those influencers that is called an influencer, but seems to just not exist. You may have heard of this next individual though, a young woman by the name of Takata Iron Eyes, a standing rock activist and member of the Ogala CU tribe. Now, I know I probably butchered those names and I'm trying my best, and I actually spent a long time studying this in college, so I'm very sorry. According to the 18-year-old's parents, they wanted their daughter back from Miller. Chase Iron Eyes, the father, claims that Takata met Miller when she was 12 and Miller was 23. Now, an account claiming to be Takata, but followed by AOC, so it's probably her maybe, released a statement about quote-unquote comrade Ezra Miller. According to the account provided, apparently Miller is loving, supporting, and an invaluable protector. Quote, "My father and his allegations hold no weight. I am now aware of the severity of emotional and psychological manipulation I was made to endure while in my parents' home." Now, Takata's parents are also activists for the Native American community. The mom is a pediatrician. Miller has been present in Takata's life since Takata was a child, and the family took Miller in. They were very open. The family claims that from a very early on, Miller was grooming Takata, accusing the actor of abuse, psychological manipulation, intimidation, and endangerment. The family blames Miller for Takata dropping out of Bard College, which is a really good college to drop out of. It's like one of those colleges where the future leaders of America are made, because everybody that goes there is like super wealthy, or they, you know, one of those schools. Anyway, Lakota Chief Bear Cross, which, cool name. I'm sorry, it's just, I like that name. Lakota Chief Bear Cross in an interview explained how Miller was always quote unquote paranoid. Smelled of weed, which Bear Cross doesn't prescribe to, but nonetheless, Bear Cross gave Miller a bedroom regardless of that. Apparently around New Year's Eve, Miller allegedly smoked weed mixed with ketamine in Chief Bear Cross's truck. Now, Chief Bear Cross was scathing of Miller's character, describing Miller as erratic and paranoid, complaining about having to take pictures with people and, you know, do celebrity things, talking about how the FBI was surrounding them just everywhere. Allegedly, when the family went to take a photo, Bear Cross then went to go take a photo with Ezra, where the actor opened their jacket, revealing a firearm. Now, Bear Cross is very, very clear about their feelings on Miller. saying how they're a possessive and controlling person of Takata, not wanting her to be alone or wanting to know who she's with, explaining another moment where Takata and Miller were sexually intimate, and overall painting this picture of Takata being devoted to the actor, being psychologically manipulated, and in a way coercively controlled through the type of things that I talk about in my cult videos. But you don't have to take the family's word for it alone. Oliver Ignatius, a longtime former collaborator with Miller, recalls a point when Miller confiscated Takata's phone and screamed in her face for putting on makeup, saying, "What are you doing putting on this fucking clown paint?" And another thing that's really frustrating about this is how Takata responds. Takata's not a dumb girl, you know, obviously she hasn't had a lot of life experience, being 18, 19 now, right? Or, you know, just being young. But there are these responses that happen for pretty much everything involving Ezra Miller as a non-binary queer person, right? Moving the goalpost arguments, these kind of arguments that avoid having a conversation about the things that happened. So Takata remarked saying, quote, "I think the fact that a catty comment made by a queer person about makeup being considered abuse is actually quite homophobic rhetoric." Sorry guys, that means this video critical of Ezra Miller might just be homophobic rhetoric. Sources linked all down below, by the way. And as I said, similar remarks are made against anybody who speaks out against the relationship that Takata and Miller have. This is not surprising. It's a very usual tactic in arguments that involve this kind of stuff. Miller, according to some, runs a cult-like Airbnb in Iceland, or ran one at one point, where women allegedly could not disagree with Miller. They controlled reality and opinions. Miller had complete control over any thoughts and feelings that were happening in this Airbnb. They ran it in a commune-like structure. Here, everyone shared everything, every space, everything, every bed. Miller became fixated on one woman, more specifically fixated on her breeding capabilities, with one woman having to discuss her womb, and Miller explaining how she needed to leave her life. I should mention that I have skipped over a couple of other accusations regarding Ezra Miller. These, again, are alleged remarks, and the rest of this video is just my thoughts on the information I've provided thus far. Basically, my opinion is that I think this is going to get a lot worse before it gets better, and I think Takata Iron Eyes will be getting the worst of it out of everybody. Celebrity cult of personality is powerful, corrupting, and while Miller clearly signals to me as someone who is unwell and addicted to drugs, only one person needs to look at Hollywood's past abusers to know how these things go and how they're not addressed. Roman Polanski, Weinstein, Spacey, recently Brendan Fraser discussed Hollywood Foreign Press Association President Philip Burke allegedly SAing him. The point here is that Hollywood rarely self-polices any of these people. Miller has been very public, so their career is pretty much over. However, I think the amount of clout the name still carries is something to be worried about, that people might bend over backwards for with Miller. I thought the headlines were more of this generation's leave Britney alone moment, that Miller would have been this person who is being misjudged by society as somebody who is LGBTQ, but I don't see that to be the case. I see this as somebody who is taking advantage of others, and while they might not be well, this doesn't excuse exactly what's going on. You know, with Miller, I don't see people calling for a solution. I see them laughing at the jokes. Unlike Weinstein, I think it's time for us to move on to something like talking about maybe this is like Weinstein. I think maybe the conversation needs to move from this is funny to this is horrifying. Anyway, that's just my opinion on it. I'd like to see what your opinions are on it, or if you knew any of these things about Ezra Miller. Anyway, next time I'll be covering something a little bit lighter. Take care, be well, and stay safe.